We got some other breaking news this morning. We can get maybe AI to speak for us right here. The company just out with a blog post detailing how it's going to work to try to improve the behavior of its AI models during what they're describing as sensitive interactions. This follows, and we talked about it on this broadcast, actually had the lawyer at the table with us last week, which was just really such a tragedy. That lawsuit filed against the company last week on behalf of a parent of a 16-year-old who committed suicide. The complaint accused ChatGPT of wrongful death, design defects, and failure to warn about risks. And you may recall the student actually was showing ChatGPT pictures of the noose and literally asking the ChatGPT whether it would hold him, how to do it. I mean, the whole thing.
But
and it went all the way.
I had to get caught up on that today. How did AI try to get him to keep this away from his parents?
There were all sorts of dialogues about whether you could tell your parents, not to. I mean, it was wild, and just in the most terrible, terrible way. I'm surprised that we haven't heard more from OpenAI about this, but this is their first shot across the bow today. They, by the way, they're not trying to set. From what we understood as of last week, they weren't trying to settle the case or anything else. In the blog post, OpenAI saying that over the next 120 days, it's going to prioritize expanding interventions to more people in crisis, making it easier to reach emergency services and expert health, enabling connections to trusted contacts, and strengthening protections for teens. That's important. The company says it will be guided by a council on well-being and AI, which includes an expanding network of more than 90 physicians across 30 different countries. It's going to roll out new parental controls as well this month. The biggest issue with all of this stuff is the longer the conversation goes on, the more potential for the degradation of the controls to work. So if you were to ask it in the first 10 sort of conversations about something that it knows it can't really answer, it'll stop you. But if this conversation goes on, in this case, for months, you can see how the system starts to, when I say degrade, meaning the guardrails of things it shouldn't talk to you about or would otherwise stop you on day one. If you had gone on and said, I need your help building a noose, it would stop you right now. But if you talked it and talked and talked and talked and talked to it for on the same thread for a very long time, that's when things go wrong, and that's what they're going to try to fix.
I don't understand.
Because the way this whole system algorithm seems to work is they can put certain guardrails on for certain types of conversation, and so when you're having this dialogue with it early on, if you ask things directly.
But you normalize it by bringing it up again and again and again. And
I don't understand how it happens. My understanding is, and by the way, I've had this experience not with terrible kinds of questions, but I've had this experience where after the 30th question, clearly the quality, even the quality of the answers degrades sometimes, and things start to break. So that's sort of where I think
this is like
we need to figure this out.
Pandora's box, too, because you can imagine. I could think just off the top of my head, come up with 10 things that you wouldn't want people looking into, whether it's building a bomb or,
But you can find those things on the internet.
I know you
right
can.
Now. I guess the difference is.
But how do you don't want it to be where you're deciding what people can see and what people can't see again. You're back to the whole censorship.
This goes back to the question
again.
Minor.
Well, but right, and that's a separate issue, which is what I think is being addressed this time in terms of parents are going to have certain controls over it. It will alert the parents if there's questions asked that are dangerous or other types of things, and but that gets into a whole other privacy question for a lot of people as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Some of these systems, like Anthropic, is very cut and dry. They basically stop any kind of conversation about any certain types of things to the point where some people think it's not useful. And so this becomes this very interesting question of uses being useful versus dangerous, and sort of where that line is, the context of the way you're asking the question. If you were asking a question about hopefully not building a bomb, but in some kind of context where you wanted to learn how to do something for a science project, that might be one instance.
But if you're asking it, and you're an adult, would it alert authorities?
And so these. I don't think it's going to alert authorities in the same way, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you think about it. Yeah. If you were to search on Google, Google is not sending a note to the authorities. We've talked about. I know we've had debates about gun use, but a lot of time, almost every time there's been a mass shooting in America, the shooter who's gone and killed lots of people, has taken to Google prior, because it shows up in all of the evidence afterwards, asking all sorts of wild questions about whether credit card companies know about the guns and everything else.
That's the question. What is the difference between a Google search and an AI large language model?
Well, the large language model can, in this case, and what we saw last week, and hopefully folks can go back and watch the video, because you can really learn about the whole case, and you can go online and learn about it as well. This was encouraging him to do this.
Oh my
I mean, this was a very different scenario.
Well, that's a whole difference.
And that's different than a direct search. So
that's horrible.
It's just another example of we really need to think about what we're doing here. Yeah. Although we don't want to get behind.
Well, and the other part is there are people, putting that aside, there are other people who are using these services, and it's quite helpful to them, right? It's cheaper than having a psychiatrist, and that it's actually, they're finding it to be useful. And the truth is, 99.9% of the people, it is hopefully helping, but then the question is, how do you prevent this kind of instance from happening?
You wonder how much it's actually helping anyway. It's,
well,
there are
that's
pretty
always
strict
a question.
guidelines for therapists and counselors and psychoanalysts.
Right.